The darkest year in WWE history.
WWE in 2007 was off
the
to
darkest
a hot start.
queer, and it's
You had
Kofi
John
Kingston
Cena versus Shawn Michaels, Batista versus The Undertaker, and WrestleMania broke pay-per-view records with Trump shaving Vince bald. It seemed like the company had finally found its footing in the post-Attitude Era landscape. But then, everything went downhill. What followed was an unprecedented cascade of real-world
Everything changed when Chris Benoit attacked.
tragedies, career-ending scandals, devastating injuries, intense media scrutiny, exploding limousines, and
This was this year.
in the darkest period WWE had ever experienced. While the product on television still remained
Jeff
decent
Hardy.
with stars like Cena, Batista, Edge, and Randy Orton leading the charge, behind
Always
the
invited
scenes,
to the cookout.
WWE was fighting for its very survival as controversies mounted week after week. So what exactly made 2007 the darkest year in WWE history? What were the tragedies, scandals, and disasters that almost caused the wrestling industry to crumble completely? And how did a company that started the year with such promise find itself desperately trying to rebuild its reputation from the ground up? Let's find out.
Bro, dude, I always laugh when I see Triple H with this
Desperately trying to rebuild its reputation
mustache
from the ground
combo like that. I don't know why it looks so funny to me.
I don't know. There was about 100 guys, like 100 celebrities in, about 2000 that looked like that. I don't know what it was. It was like they were exiting the 90s, entering the 2000s, and they
thought they were Wolverine.
Transitional look.
I don't know what it is. It was either that or that Lemmy guy from Motorhead. Like, it's quite a look.
Let's find out.
Chapter 1.
Let's start by talking about the darkest tragedy in WWE history that changed everything. The weekend of June 24th, 2007 began like any other pay-per-view weekend for WWE. WWE Vengeance was set to take place in Houston, and one of the most anticipated matches on the card was Chris Benoit defending his ECW championship against the up-and-coming CM Punk. But when Showtime arrived, Benoit was nowhere to be found. Initially, WWE officials were told that Benoit couldn't make it due to a family emergency involving carbon monoxide poisoning at his home. While the news was concerning, these things happened occasionally in wrestling, and the show had to go on.
How many times did it happen before where wrestlers didn't show up to events due to carbon monoxide poisoning?
I would say approximately 0 times. I think he was trying to insinuate sometimes these things happen where just like, a
wrestler doesn't show up.
I think it's what he was trying to insinuate. I'm like, I think Jeff Hardy's probably, only showed up drunk or high or didn't show up because he was high 30 times. So
across different promotions.
Yeah.
Was quickly substituted into the match, defeating CM Punk to become the new ECW champion.
That guy fucks. That guy was handsome as hell.
Fans and fellow wrestlers kept wanting to wear their
Pause.
And that's funny. Then after that, I saw Tommy Dreamer, who's not handsome enough for me to be gay.
No,
but he's
hardcore.
Tommy Dreamer.
Beloved technical wrestler had gone, but behind the scenes, a much darker reality was unfolding. WWE officials couldn't reach Benoit by phone, and as hours passed without contact, panic began to set in. The company was already dealing with the fallout from Vince McMahon's exploding limousine segment, which was supposed to culminate in a special 3-hour tribute episode of Raw the following night. Instead, the planned McMahon Memorial Show was quickly scrapped when news broke that would change everything. On Monday afternoon, just hours before Raw was set to air, police discovered the bodies of Chris Benoit, his wife Nancy, and their 7-year-old son Daniel at their home in Fayetteville, Georgia. Initial reports suggested a possible family tragedy, perhaps the carbon monoxide poisoning that had been mentioned earlier. In a state of shock and confusion, WWE made the decision to transform their planned McMahon tribute into a Chris Benoit memorial show. For 3 hours, WWE superstars sat with tears in their eyes, sharing memories of Benoit and showcasing his greatest matches. They showed his Royal Rumble victory, his WrestleMania triumph, and countless technical masterpieces that had made him one of the most respected wrestlers.
They're doing all of this before they know any.
They're under the impression that it was just carbon monoxide poisoning.
Just some, terrible tragedy.
Yeah.
We can't believe our superstar is gone. We loved him. He was our dear friend.
Well, he was one of the greatest of all time.
His family.
Oops, he killed his What a piece of shit. Well, what a piece of shit.
Never talk about
let me
him
just
again.
start it there. Never mention his name.
No.
But I think it's probably for the best. In my opinion, fuck Chris Benoit.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean,
you could say CTE and whatever you want. At the end of the day, bro smothered his wife and child.
I don't believe there's enough brain damage that you could do to somebody. I mean, he was still walking, talking, doing his regular shit, you know?
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that CTE just made him do that. I mean, there's been a lot of professional boxers that have been knocked unconscious, MMA fighters that have been knocked unconscious, football players that have been beaten and destroyed. And yes, there are examples like, Alex Hernandez, or is Alexander Hernandez? No, it's Alex.
Yeah.
Oh, Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez.
Aaron
Hernandez?
Yeah,
Aaron Hernandez. Right. I mix up. There's so many athletes in my head that I can think of.
Yeah.
Aaron Hernandez obviously had a similar something like that. But then you see a guy like, Chuck Liddell, who's got severe, he's
got
clearly got CTE. My point is that guy's gotten the shit beat out of him, been through hell and back, and he did not murder his family.
Yes. That is the main point we're trying to make.
I think it might be like alcohol, it just kind of, the inner you will come out worse than normal. If you're a really loving person, you're really nice while you're on alcohol. If you're an irritable dickhead, you are the worst irritable dickhead while you're drunk.
Wrestlers in the
peep
world.
This out.
Edge broke down on camera. William Regal spoke about Benoit's dedication to the craft. It was a touching tribute to a man they all believed had died tragically alongside his family. But as the show progressed, more details began emerging from the police investigation. This wasn't a family tragedy or an accident, it was something darker. Chris Benoit had killed his wife Nancy, his son Daniel, and then taken his own life. The revelation hit WWE like a nuclear bomb. Vince McMahon, who had been dealing with his fictional death storyline, now faced a very real crisis that threatened to destroy his company's reputation forever. The next night on ECW, a visibly shaken McMahon appeared on television to address what had become apparent. With one of the angriest expressions ever seen on his face, he promised that Chris Benoit's name would never be mentioned on WWE programming again, but the damage was already done. The wrestling world had just broadcast a 3-hour tribute to a man who had committed one of the most heinous crimes imaginable, and mainstream media was about to pounce on the industry like never before.
Jesus.
I gotta say, this would be like, could you imagine, like when Kobe Bryant died? The news came out that he took control of the helicopter and smashed it into the ground. But just a week prior, the NBA had the world's greatest tribute to Kobe, retired his number, built a statue, and then they found out he murdered everybody in the helicopter.
Yeah, he obviously didn't do that. Shout out Kobe. R.I.P. Kobe. Shout out the Kobe. It's just the comparison. But it's an app comparison.
All right, I don't think listen, we're not talking to retards. They'll get it.
No, for sure. I'm just saying. They do exist.
The blue square goes in the square hole. The red circle goes in the circle hole. Nope, that's the triangle shape. Try again.
Within hours of the Benoit tragedy being revealed, every major news outlet in America descended upon pro wrestling like vultures. CNN, Fox News, ESPN, and countless other networks launched into wrestling.
ESPN.
The narrative painted WWE and pro wrestling as a cesspool of steroid abuse and violence. When wrestlers like Kevin Nash appeared on Fox News to defend their industry, they were met with hostile interrogation rather than genuine discussion.
But I just thought they called him Diesel. I never heard Big Sexy.
That's like when I learned about John Jones' sexual chocolate. I was like, whoa, where did that come from? I thought he was John Bones Jones, not Johnny Give Me a Boner Jones.
Mark Henry used to be sexual chocolate as well. There's a little bit of lore for you.
The media's approach was ruthless and often dishonest. Anchors who had never watched a wrestling match in their lives suddenly became experts on the industry and painted every wrestler as a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. What made the media assault particularly devastating was its timing. Wrestling had already been dealing with public perception problems since the end of the Attitude Era, and this gave critics the ammunition they needed to paint the entire industry as irredeemably corrupt. But the media firestorm was just the beginning of WWE's problems, because as reporters dug deeper into the wrestling world, they uncovered a scandal that would forever change how WWE superstars looked and performed. As if the media scrutiny following the Benoit tragedy wasn't devastating enough, WWE was about to face an even more immediate crisis that would gut their roster and expose the widespread use of performance-enhancing drugs.
No. I don't know. Some dipshit is driving past my apartment.
No, I heard the battle bus.
Throughout the industry. The investigation had actually begun months earlier, in February 2007, when Sports Illustrated started looking into a potential steroid distribution network operating out of Florida. What started as a routine investigation quickly expanded into something much larger when major wrestling names began appearing in the records. Kurt Angle was the first major star implicated, though he denied any wrongdoing. But Angle was
wait. Was this like the WWE Epstein files?
That's kind of what I was getting. That's kind of what I was thinking here, honestly. Should Congress step in?
Okay. In November 2005, 38-year-old professional wrestler Eddie Guerrero died in Minneapolis hotel room due to what a coroner later ruled as a heart disease.
It's a damn good thing they don't have an OSHA or fucking workman's comp in WWE universe. My lord.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if you showed up to a factory and everyone at the factory was roided up as fuck, and they had to be as they worked.
Yeah.
They worked,
they had to lift heavy shit
6 nights a week, and they had to travel every time. They're all on pills.
Yeah. They're
all in excruciating pain on pills. They're all super jacked. Dude, I mean, honestly,
operating out of Florida.
I kind of get why they thought. They're like, dude, this is a ticking time bomb. They're like, dude, look at Triple H. Tell me that guy's sane. Like, he's going to fucking lose his mind anytime. He comes out, he looks like a maniac. Fucking spits in the air. Fucking, they all like maniacs. Randy Savage? Are you shitting me? The Ultimate Warrior on the ropes?
Much larger when major wrestling names
shaking the fucking ropes. I knocked my camera down. Fuck.
Looking into a potential steroid distribution network operating out of Florida. What started as a routine investigation quickly expanded into something much larger when major wrestling names began appearing in the records. Kurt Angle was the first major star implicated, though he denied any wrongdoing. But Angle was just the tip of the iceberg. On March 19, 2007, Sports Illustrated dropped a bombshell article revealing that multiple wrestlers had received prescriptions from Dr. David Wilbert in Arizona between November 2004 and April 2005. The initial list included names like Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Randy Orton, Edge, and Gregory Helms.
There, though. These are all ghosts. Leave them alone. Leave them alone. Those are all ghosts.
The allegations, he admitted to using steroids after his neck injury, explaining that they were prescribed to help the bones grow back around the screws and plates in his neck. The situation exploded on August 30th, 2007, when the New York Daily News published a comprehensive list of wrestlers who had received steroids and other drugs from internet doctors. 12 current WWE wrestlers were named, and the fallout was catastrophic. Chavo Guerrero, Shane Helms, Randy Orton, John Morrison, Mr. Kennedy,
I forgot about Chavo
Charlie
Guerrero.
Haas, Umaga, William Regal, Edge, and several others were suspended for violating WWE's wellness policy. The timing couldn't have been worse. WWE was already dealing with the Benoit aftermath and intense media scrutiny. Now they were losing another dozen wrestlers to suspensions. Storylines had to be rewritten overnight. Umaga lost the Intercontinental Championship to Jeff Hardy, John Morrison was stripped of the ECW title and lost it to CM Punk, and countless other angles were abruptly terminated. But perhaps most heartbreaking was Mr. Kennedy's fall from grace. Kennedy had been positioned as WWE's next big star, chosen to be revealed as Vince McMahon's illegitimate son in what was supposed to be a career-defining storyline. Instead, his suspension ended his push, and the angle was quickly rewritten with Hornswoggle taking his place. The scandal didn't stop there. Congress got involved and demanded records from WWE dating back to 1998. TNA was also asked to provide information, making this an industry-wide crisis.
Oh, hell yeah.
But even as WWE reeled from suspensions and media scrutiny, their problems were about to get worse. As if the Benoit tragedy and steroid scandal weren't devastating enough for WWE's roster, 2007 also became a year where it seemed like every major star was cursed to suffer career-threatening injuries at the worst possible moments. The injury plague began early in the year when Triple H suffered a devastating quad tear that would sideline him for 7 months. The timing was horrible since Triple H was being planned for a high-profile WrestleMania rematch with John Cena, forcing WWE to completely rewrite their biggest show of the year at the last minute. Shawn Michaels stepped into Triple H's spot, creating one of the best matches in WrestleMania history with Cena. But losing HBK's original opponent meant further reshuffling of an already complicated card. The domino effect of a single injury was already causing problems.
Ooh, that
this
knee,
was just the beginning of WWE's medical nightmare. The Undertaker.
Whose knee?
Look, there's a bowling ball. Triple H. Look at that knee. Look at that. That can't. Dude. That's not a normal knee. Surely not. That shit looks so puffy.
Well, this is probably either before or after surgery on his quad.
There looks
he
like
tore the thing off the bone, I'm pretty sure.
There literally looks like there's a cantaloupe in his knee. Like
Isn't this maybe literally the muscle that, because it snapped, it like shot down to his knee?
Oh, I can't, like, all I can think about is myself in comparison, and I just think about how my knee felt, and it didn't look like that. My knee hurt, and it did not look like that.
Injury was already causing problems, but this was just the beginning of WWE's medical nightmare. The Undertaker, who had been having a career renaissance with his world title run and matches against Batista,
this was peak Undertaker.
That forced him out of action.
Dude, Undertaker was a dog right here. That was the dead man that I grew up to love.
Positioned as SmackDown's top heel, suffered a pectoral injury that forced him to vacate the title he had just won. Bobby Lashley, who had been built as ECW's franchise player, also suffered injuries that disrupted his momentum. But perhaps the most devastating blow came when John Cena, WWE's undisputed top star and face of the company, tore his pectoral muscle in October. The injury bug was so severe that by the summer of 2007, WWE's main event scene had been reduced to Batista, Rey Mysterio.
That was just real quick, this was the best looking
2007, WWE's main event scene had been reduced to...
This was the best looking championship belt they had. I loved it.
Yeah, for the heavyweight, they kind of made it look like a boxing style kind of belt.
And I'll take it one step further. This championship was literally designed for Batista. Like, it didn't look better on anybody else.
I think it's hilarious that they gave it to Rey Mysterio in like 2010.
Yeah. And then John Cena beat him the same night.
Yeah. Well, it was like they made him heavyweight champion, and he was like 5'5". 160 pounds. I'm like, heavyweight. That makes sense.
To Batista, Rey Mysterio, Randy Orton, and King Booker. When you combine the injuries with the suspensions, WWE was left with a roster so thin that they were forced to put the World Heavyweight Championship on the Great Khali, not because he was the best choice, but because he was one of the only credible heels left standing. But WWE's crisis went beyond just immediate injuries and suspensions. These mounting disasters forced the company to make changes that would reshape the wrestling industry forever.
You can't see me.
The mounting crisis of 2007 forced WWE into a desperate period that would fundamentally alter the direction of pro wrestling forever. What emerged was a complete philosophical shift that transformed WWE from the edgy, controversial shows that had defined the Attitude Era into something entirely different. The most immediate change came in response to the Benoit tragedy and the growing understanding of CTE in the company. Unprotected chair shots to the head, which had been a staple of hardcore wrestling for decades, were immediately banned following the discovery that Benoit's brain showed damage equivalent to an 87-year-old Alzheimer's patient. The company also implemented stricter concussion protocols and enhanced their wellness policy,
all right, guys.
which had originally...
We found out that we made Benoit retarded. So Vince said the diving headbutt was a really good idea. Everyone thought it was a good idea. Not a single person ever had a single negative thing to say. Nothing to the contrary of this. Believe it or not so good for the head. Diving 20 feet off the Hell in the Cell with a headbutt, do it 10 times. Do it multiple times a month. Matter of fact, did I mention that I would like you to jump off of a ladder and get hit in the head with a steel chair? And would you do it today? Or $9.99?
Been created after Eddie Guerrero's death. More frequent testing, stricter penalties, and increased medical oversight became the new standard as WWE tried to prove to critics that they were serious about performer safety. But the most visible change was WWE's gradual shift toward family-friendly programming. This wasn't entirely due to the 2007 controversies. There were financial incentives to pursuing a PG rating that would attract more mainstream advertisers and sponsors. However, the events of 2007 accelerated this transition dramatically. Network executives and advertisers who might have overlooked wrestling's edgier content were now actively distancing themselves from anything associated with WWE's violence and controversy. The move toward PG programming was evident in small changes at first. Hornswoggle began appearing in more child-friendly segments, blood was gradually reduced, and storylines became less focused on adult themes. The gritty look of Raw was abandoned, hardcore matches became increasingly rare, and the overall tone shifted from rebellious entertainment to something parents could watch with their children. WWE's decision to go HD in 2008 provided the perfect cover for this transition, but industry insiders knew the real motivation. The company needed to rebuild its reputation from the ground up, and that meant abandoning everything that had made wrestling controversial in the first place. Kelly couldn't do her provocative, extreme expose segments anymore. Storylines became less personal, and the general atmosphere had to become more sanitized. WWE was moving away from the crash TV mentality that had defined their success in the late 1990s towards something that could survive mainstream scrutiny. This shift toward PG programming would define WWE's content for over a decade, fundamentally changing how storylines were written, how characters were developed, and what kinds of matches could be presented. However, even as WWE was implementing these changes to salvage their reputation, 2007 still had more tragedy in store. What had already been the darkest period in WWE history became even more devastating as a cascade of wrestler deaths created an atmosphere of genuine fear. The year saw the deaths of Bam Bam Bigelow and Mike Awesome within a month of each other in early 2007. Bigelow was just 45 years old when he died from a drug overdose, while Awesome was only 42. In March, Bad News Brown and Ernie Ladd died within the same week, creating an eerie pattern that had wrestlers genuinely worried about who might be next. June brought the death of Sherry Martel from a drug overdose. The media used each death as evidence of wrestling's toxic culture, creating a narrative that painted the entire industry as a death trap. August brought yet another tragedy when Bryan Adams, known to fans as Crush, died at age 43 from mixing prescribed medications. Beyond the deaths, WWE was dealing with a host of other problems that would have been major crises in any normal year, but seemed almost minor compared to everything else happening. ECW was on life support after Vince McMahon's comedy championship reign killed whatever credibility the brand had left. The cruiserweight division became such a joke that WWE actually put the title on Hornswoggle. Creative teams were constantly rewriting shows due to suspensions, injuries, and other real-world crises interrupting their storylines. The threat of federal intervention loomed over every decision, making company executives paranoid about every aspect of their operation. Looking back at 2007, it's remarkable that WWE survived it all. Anyone...
That was an interesting video.
It was, and it all makes sense, really. When I first started watching wrestling as a little kid, wrestling was just coming out of the Attitude Era. And I grew up with two older brothers that are, they were born in the in the 90s, early 90s. So they grew up all with the Stone Cold and Triple H and DX and all of that. And we didn't have a whole lot of money growing up. So all of my stuff was hand-me-down. So everything I knew was like 90s toys, old wrestling video games. Like I was playing N64, wrestling games, NWO wrestling game even. So like all the characters that I knew and loved were from this era. And when I was watching it on TV, I got like just the very end of it. And it was like right after Benoit. So like, I was probably watching wrestling for the first time, really watching it, probably like 2008 or 9. And I remember the intro for SmackDown was like bloody. I remember it like scared my sister. She didn't want to watch it. I'm like, why? It's wrestling. It's awesome. Why are you being a little bitch? This is sick. Have you not played SmackDown versus Raw? Get out of here. But it was a pretty big transition. And then by the time I was like, 13, that was the complete opposite. There was no middle finger saying fuck you. There was no Stone Cold chugging beer. Like we had Undertaker and the Dead Man, and that was about as like hardcore as they would go.
That was the darkest year in WWE history. Let us know in the comments what you thought. Let us know if there's anything else you want us to watch, and be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
Absolutely. Wah.
Mwah.